Magnus has moved to Oslo and gotten himself a girlfriend, and even though she's sure that at one point or another they will split up because, after all, it's obvious that she and Magnus are the perfect couple, she has a strong feeling that she's lost again. Once again the world has put up its hand and said, You can get straight back into your own head. When Sigrid was a child, she often became attached to things in nature for want of any feeling of contact with people. She became attached to the mountains behind the house and the stars in particular, the stars over the mountains at night. She would sit on her bed, which was right by the window, with her chin on the windowsill, and look up at the mountains, which were often completely white, as it was usually winter when she sat like this and looked at the mountains that were almost bright white, and the Big Dipper that hung shining above the mountains and moved slowly along the ridge. And she looked at all the other stars, how they sparkled and shone, as though they were alive. And Sigrid looked up at them and thought, You understand me. If no one else understands me, you're always there. Sometimes it brought tears to her eyes because she felt the connection between herself and the stars so intensely. They were her, and the white mountains were her, and the black sky. Luckily, every now and then, John English would lift her chin with his finger, and her head, which had been bent deep in thought, and her long dark hair, she imagined, were lifted slowly and full of promise by John English's finger under her chin, and she looked straight into a pair of eyes that were so clear and blue, and full of love and understanding. His eyes shone in just the same way they did in Against the Wind, and Sigrid shone back. And one day she thought, as she sat there with her chin on the windowsill, looking at the stars, this would actually happen in real life as well. She would be sitting with her head bent deep in thought, like now, and someone would lift her chin with his finger. In other words, Sigrid also shines brightly. Her inner life is luminous, only not many people have seen it. Her secret sparkling light. Definitely not Magnus, that's for sure, and she's completely forgotten John English. But right now, as she sits here holding the book with the photograph of the author, she gets the strange feeling that perhaps it doesn't matter. The whole thing with Magnus. The other day, she went into a bookshop, as she normally does when she's got nowhere to go, and doesn't dare go to a cafe on her own, because she can't face giving herself a pep talk before she goes in, and then having to encourage herself every second that she sits there, because it's quite obvious that she's not there with anyone. She went into a bookshop instead. It was one of those days when she felt like the white mountains, and the stars, and the dark, dark night, which no one saw. She wandered between the shelves, took down one book after another, and then randomly she pulled out a book that had the fantastic and hopeful life-affirming title, An Empty Chair. The very thing she was looking for, somewhere to sit in life, someone who wanted her to sit there with them. When she turned the book over to read the back, she met the eyes of the author, Kåre Rivla. Yes, that was exactly what happened. She felt that he met her eyes, Kåre Rivla. She stood there looking at his face. She thought he was very handsome, of course. He was dark, and there was something John English-ish about his square features. A more distinguished John English, but it was the eyes that kept her transfixed. It was as if they saw deep inside her, as though all the time she had been wandering around feeling so infinitely lonely. These eyes, which saw it, which saw her infinite loneliness, had been there in the bookshelf, eyes that seemed to say, Hello, you? It could well be that she felt like this because of the illusion that's created when the subject of a picture looks straight at the observer, painter or photographer. No matter where you place yourself in relation to the picture, you seem to have eye contact, and it might well be the tiniest bit nuts to feel like that he saw her. But Sigrid didn't reflect on it at all. She just felt a sublime and stomach-lurching, "Oh," and took a step back as a result.